18 for public testimony.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perry has opened public testimony. The chair calls on Senate Bill 18, Jonathan Covey. And we'll ask you to try to line up from left to right. We'll try to stay in order. My left, that'd be right to left for you. Jonathan Covey, Ken Moore. Chair calls Ken Moore. The chair calls Dustin Reinders. Dustin Reinders. The chair calls Shelby Evans. Shelby Evans. And the chair calls Bryce Lockheed Stanfield. So we're looking for Jonathan Covey, Ken Moore, Dustin Reinders, Shelby Evans, Bryce Lockheed Stanfield. Welcome to each witness, and we'll recognize you in turn, and then after we hear each of your testimony, then we'll open up the panel for questions to each one in case any members have. We're glad you're here. Regardless of your position, we want to hear from you. Your voices matter. And so we'll begin with Mr. Covey on my left, your right. Introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. My name is Jonathan Covey. I have the honor of serving as the policy director for Texas Values. We're a legal and advocacy nonprofit in Texas that focuses on faith, family, and freedom. I have a law degree and a legal background in constitutional law. I'm testifying in favor of SB 18 and do want to thank the chair for bringing this bill. We have over 200,000 supporters in all 254 counties in Texas, and our supporters are deeply alarmed at the documented explosive growth in drag queen story hour events in public municipal libraries. We've been speaking out against these events for years and have many documented instances of the hypersexualized entertainment during these story hours. These events, of course, are normally geared towards children ages 3 to 11 years old. And many times we see that children are asked to participate in this entertainment of this event. There are videos of young children being asked to put dollar bills in underwear, young children being asked to strut or to dance, imitating drag queens, and it is exposing kids to hypersexualization at an early age and with devastating results. And it's not just libraries where these things occur, but the American Library Association has been a strong supporter of these events and has pushed libraries particularly aggressively. And research has shown time and time again that early sexualization creates a lot of issues later on into adulthood, including possibly becoming violent, facing problems with intimacy, depression, low self-esteem, eating disorders, diminished sexual health. Children are casualties of these events, and nothing is worth the price of the well-being of our children. So please support this measure.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Moore, welcome. Introduce yourself. Give us your testimony.
Okay. My name is Ken Moore. I am here representing myself, and I am for this bill. There are reasons why we do not sell beer, cigarettes, and Playboy magazines to minors. There are reasons why we do not let them get tattoos or work in the sex industry. There are reasons why we have ratings for movies and TV shows. We recognize, or we used to recognize, children need to know what is normal and healthy before they're exposed to what is not normal. Children are inexperienced in this world. They're impressionable and easily influenced. Child soldiers in Sudan learn to be stone-cold killers. Young children in Thailand, both boys and girls, learn to be prostitutes. It's bad enough they're abused, but they come to believe that this is all normal and routine. They do not have the foundation of maturity to appreciate the evil of what they are doing and what's being done to them. They think nothing of it because they've never known anything different. They are children. Seeing men dressed up and acting like prostitutes is a wonderful example of what they do not need to see until their life experience equips them with the context to process it. They think nothing of it because they have never known anything different. It still astonishes me that we even have this conversation. Committee members, there are many dark places in this world for children. Texas libraries should not be among them. This bill goes a long way toward bringing back some sorely needed sanity to what our children see and hear in a place that should be for learning and growing. And I urge you to move it forward.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Reinders, welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dustin Reinders, the legal director at the Texas Civil Rights Project, and I'm here to oppose SB 18. After the last session, the Texas Civil Rights Project was honored to represent LGBT chambers of commerce, actors, and theaters from all around Texas in filing a First Amendment challenge to that unconstitutional law, which is still on hold. This bill is even more egregious in its unconstitutionality in that it doesn't even feign to target sexual or explicit or adult content, but merely cross-dressing. In free countries, there is no requirement to wear gender-conforming clothing. Children benefit from stories, performances, and spaces that reflect the full diversity of our communities. Children have watched people in drag since at least the 1500s, when every Shakespeare production included male actors in every female part. As a queer kid growing up in Texas in the 1980s, I still remember the first time I saw drag. It was Tom Hanks in the daytime network sitcom Bosom Buddies. I guess it took till the next decade for me to first time see a drag story hour, which would have been the great late Robin Williams read to children in Miss Doubtfire. As conservative cancel culture has reached a new peak in our state, trying to erase groups of Texans and eliminate speech and expression of all marginalized people for political points, I am thankful for the First Amendment. And I continue to trust Texas parents will be able to choose the activities they take their children to, supervise their children's safety, and provide the context they believe is necessary if their child has any questions, just like they have at every drag story hour. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Evans, introduce yourself. Welcome. Go ahead.
Hello, committee. My name is Shelby Evans. I'm testifying against SB 18. We're back again to push against bills that aim to restrict free speech for specific people and do nothing to protect children. No art form is inherently sexual or adult. Not movies, not TV, not books, not dancing, and not drag. There are books, even at your local library, that include violent storylines, depictions of war, or even spicy elven and vampire romance, all of which that are not appropriate for children and not on the kids' shelves. Like books, drag, movies, music, these are art forms that can be adapted for different audiences. The language in this bill targets drag performers and trans people. But what if I told you that I've done drag, feminine drag, as a woman? I looked like a fantastical princess. My costume gave me the silhouette of Dolly Parton with the big hair to match. Since I said I'm a woman, this appearance is considered appropriate for story time. But how could you or the librarian verify my gender? Are you suggesting my personal documents or body parts be checked? Does this bill require libraries to discriminate on the basis of sex and appearance? The language of the bill is unconstitutional, and it shows a glaring bias against the LGBTQIA people. And please, I ask you, please stop attacking a community. These are people doing a public service that benefits children and their families, and instead focus on legislating laws that actually protect children.
Thanks for your testimony. And, did I pronounce Lockie? Is it Lockie Stanfield? Did I get close?
It's Lakeith Stanfield.
Thank you.
All good.
Introduce yourself. Go ahead. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Bryce Lakey. I'm speaking opposition to SB 18. I represent myself. I am a disabled veteran, a proudly queer individual, a native Austinite, and Texan. I am represented by Senator Judith Zaffarini, which sits on this committee. I urge her to also support me here today and oppose this proposed bill. When I took the oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States of America, I swore to uphold all of its constants without exception. I would like to remind this esteemed Senate that the Constitution guarantees our fundamental rights, including the freedom of speech. The proposed legislation before us represents a direct threat to these freedoms. Specifically, it undermines protection of public spaces that serve all people without discrimination, as intended by our Constitution and our founding fathers. By advancing this bill into law, we risk an attack on these fundamental freedoms, and in doing so, violate the very oath that I, as well as all of you, have sworn to uphold in this very room. We must remember that our duty is to defend the rights and liberties enshrined in the Constitution for all Americans, and this bill stands in opposition to that duty, and I thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for any of our witnesses on this panel? Thank each of you for being here. You're excused. The chair now calls Arwen Heilrain, Bridget Bandit, Cassian Nova, Alex Shawver, and Jamie Haynes. Again, we're looking for Arwen Heilrain, Bridget Bandit, Cassian Nova, Alex Shawver, and Jamie Haynes. And I wasn't trying to prescribe any particular order. We'll just go from my left to your right. And so introduce yourself and give us your testimony. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Arwen Heilrain. I'm representing myself, and I'm here to testify against SB 18. I have two moms. I've been surrounded by the queer community for most of my life, and my parents brought me to Pride events starting very young. When I saw drag queens at this event, I was shown that my family was not wrong, and that people being themselves was not something I should be ashamed of. I talked recently with my mom about the first time I ever saw a drag queen. She said I was just in awe of them. I really liked how colorful their outfits were. My little sister is 8 years old now, and I've been taking her to drag story times for most of her life. The first time we walked in, she stopped, she gasped, and she goes, "Oh my goodness, they are beautiful." She loves them. She begs for me to keep taking her to them. And it is my family's choice to take her to them. We choose that because we know what we're taking her to. We are taking her to listen to a children's book, to dance the hokey pokey, and to chat with someone in a pretty dress. Giving kids the opportunity to see people express themselves is not harming them. It's allowing them to understand that they are able to express themselves in wonderful ways. Not only that, but in 2024, Texas was ranked number 46 for worst literacy in the United States. I am a student at UT and I'm studying to be a teacher. I care deeply about children and their learning. Our children are not getting the education they need. However, instead of supporting public schools and public school teachers and kids, you are ripping public schools apart with school vouchers. You are allowing semi-automatic weapons in our state that are killing our children. You are allowing immigration officers into schools where they can deport children, and you are taking away events where they can learn. How is that protecting our children? I do not understand. If we were being honest with each other, this bill is not about protecting children. It's about furthering your careers that are built on discrimination and hate. I urge you to vote against this bill and vote to protect Texas children.
Thanks for your testimony. Welcome. Introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hello, my name is Bridget Bandit, and I'm speaking in opposition to SB 18. I'm a born and raised Texan and full-time drag queen. Previously, I have worked with children throughout my life as a swim instructor, teaching summer art camps, hosting children's birthday parties, and volunteering in my church as a youth group leader. Today, I occasionally host drag queen story times. These kinds of events don't differ much from the kind of work I did before, yet this bill would impact my ability to work with children simply based on a subjective and ill-defined expectation of how I should look. Would you consider what I'm wearing now, makeup, a wig, dress, and heels, as presenting as a woman? If so, my drag story times would be unaffected, as I am someone born female that many supporters of this bill would consider to be a woman. Why should I be able to continue the same kind of events with similar content and costumes, but not my male counterparts? This bill is more concerned with the sex and genitalia of the performers than the appropriateness of the costumes worn, the background of the performers, the content of the performances, or actually protecting children. Drag is simply a form of art, and like any form of art, can be produced by many different kinds of people and be modified for different kinds of audiences, just like actors who do both rated R and G movies. Drag story times are intentionally modified to be appropriate for children. Furthermore, members of this committee recently voted to pass a bill attempting to fund private schools under the guise of giving parents more options for their children's education. These parents should also be trusted with deciding what kind of entertainment is appropriate for their children. If you truly believe in parental choice, then you will not support this bill that restricts just that. Ultimately, this is a blatant attack on our First Amendment right of free speech and expression. Drag story times promote kindness, acceptance, and inclusivity, things that threaten those who seek power from hatred, intolerance, and division. So while y'all do that, I will continue my drag story times no matter what happens to this bill, and I encourage y'all to focus on issues affecting our Texas children rather than arguing about who is allowed to wear a dress and read a book at the library.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
My name is Cassia Nova. I'm a Texas drag king representing myself. I am speaking in opposition to SB 18 and ask that you do not let this bill move out of committee. When the Senate took up this issue with SB 1601, it could not properly produce a reason for banning drag storytime events, and it cannot produce a reason now. The bill lacks justification, substance, and more importantly, foresight. There's no justification for the implementation of this bill, nor is there any evidence suggesting this is a matter of concern for the Texas people. Parents, not politicians, ought to be the ones to decide what events to take their children to. Children benefit tremendously from the interpersonal and literary community generated by these events. Banning access to art and self-expression is an egregious overreach into the family sphere. Banning hardworking business owners like me from exercising our business and artists from doing our craft is an egregious overreach into personal and economic freedoms. The contents of this bill are insufficient and undefined. You each have a responsibility to explain to your constituents and legally define what exactly a man dressed as a woman or a woman dressed as a man means beyond vague gesturing. Finally, you have a responsibility to ask yourself what'll happen if this bill gets passed with this language. Ask yourself what you'll do when the bill targets the livelihoods of Texas artists, performers, and business owners. Under this bill, freedoms of expression and speech, family autonomy, and the freedom to dress as you want will be taken away from your constituents. Trans and queer Texans will be targeted for merely being present in libraries. Cis women will be demonized for wearing pantsuits, and cis men will be demonized for wearing clothing that is too form-fitting or too loose. Minority ethnic groups will be targeted for their cultural attire. Disabled individuals who must wear specific clothing to accommodate their accessibility needs will be targeted. Finally, ask yourself what exactly you're supposed to be doing on this committee. You have a duty to your constituents, to the state, and to the American Constitution to protect freedom of expression, speech, business, and the family. And you have a duty to strike down vague laws primed for abuse and confusion. Anything less than that is a failure of your office and your duties as a representative of the American people.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
Hello, Senator Hughes and members of the committee. My name is Alex Shaver. I am an educator, a student, and a lifelong Texan. I guess I'm really here to talk about Winnie the Pooh, but also to encourage everyone to oppose SB 18. What I have here is groundbreaking artistic technology. This is a functional prop. This is my musical score for an original musical setting of an original Winnie the Pooh tale from about 100 years ago. Winnie the Pooh never hurt any kid as far as I know, and we haven't banned that book. But I had a great concert. Some of my piano students came out with their parents. It was awesome, it was family friendly, and everyone on stage was some kind of queer, and we all managed to keep ourselves decent in front of the audience who loved the show. And to be honest, I have a dream to one day do a show like this in my hometown, Wichita Falls, at our public library, which would not be possible if SB 18 were to become law. To be honest, I'm trying not to lose too much sleep over it because we did have the ruling for SB 12 last session, where drag is free speech, that I expect to be protected still. But I'm just thinking about what we're actually doing here. I think that y'all might be putting on a little bit of a show, maybe not drag, but a drag show yourselves because you want support from constituents who do want stories like Winnie the Pooh set to live music banned from local libraries. But besides that, I just want to reiterate that it's not freedom if someone, because of a dress or a wig, even if they're just reading Winnie the Pooh and playing a trombone, is not allowed to experience storytelling and speak in front of kids. Storytelling is powerful free speech. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman and committee members. My name is Jamie Haynes, and I'm from Canyon, Texas, right outside Amarillo in the Panhandle. I'm with Texans Wake Up, and I'm testifying for SB 18. Children have rights. Children have a natural right to their mother and father. Let me expand upon natural rights versus legal rights. Natural rights are those that are not dependent on the laws or customs of any particular culture. Legal rights are those bestowed onto a person by a given legal system. Justice is served when legal rights are informed by natural rights. 3 rules that make it a right. Number 1, a natural right exists pre-government. Number 2, no one has to provide you with a natural right. Number 3, a natural right is distributed equally. No one is born with a greater or lesser potential to exercise these rights. Children have a natural right to their parents and each of the very unique roles that both males and females play in a child's development. Biology does matter. Biological identity of each role begins to form for the child. Gender matters. Gender is not a social construct. Men and women offer distinct and complementary benefits to children. Men and women are different, and those differences greatly matter to kids. In this specific case of Drag Queen Story Hour and the bending of sexual identities, are children to discard the roles that male and females play in their lives and society? Are children to endorse the political activism rooted in adult decisions to bend or flip sexual identities? No, absolutely not. Children should not have to sacrifice their natural rights to biological roles. In Drag Queen Story Hour, we are prioritizing adult desire above children's rights. Let me say that again. We are prioritizing adults' desire above children's natural rights. Adults need to do hard things so children don't have to. We want them, the children, to come before us in the minds of all adults. We must change our perspective and reorient the way adults view children. Adults should make the necessary sacrifices so children don't have to. SB 18 puts a pretty strong deterrent out there for public libraries to prioritize children's rights above the perceived needs, wants, or desires of adults by pulling funding. In SB 18, Texas is simply prioritizing children's natural rights. Thank you for protecting children. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Senators, any questions for any of our witnesses on this panel? Thank each of you for being here. You're excused. The chair now calls Dr. Brian Register. Dr. Brian Register. Megan Fairbanks. Megan Fairbanks. Johnny Vassallo. Johnny Vassallo. Maxine LaQueen. Maxine LaQueen. As we complete this panel, is Megan Fairbanks down here yet? I don't know all the witnesses. How about Quincy Craig? Looking for Quincy Craig. Come on down. And we'll call Cecilia Wood if Cecilia is here. Bless you, Senator. Is Marshall Romero present, wishing to testify? Marshall Romero. All right, come on here and have a seat. There's a seat for you over there on that side. They're all equally uncomfortable, just right over there. And Dr. Register, we'll start with you. If you want to introduce yourself and give us your testimony, welcome.
Certainly, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Brian Register. I'm a philosopher. I've been teaching logic for more than 20 years. So I'd like to address a confused allegation about drag queen story hours. The argument we're given against the story hours is as follows. Story hours sexualize children. Sexualizing children is irredeemably bad. Therefore, the story hours do something irredeemably bad. But the reasoning turns on a fallacy of ambiguity. In one sense, story hours sexualize children in that they emphasize biological sex in the presence of children. However, dressing boys in pants and girls in skirts, sending them to different bathrooms and so forth, also sexualize children in the exact same sense. Bugs Bunny and drag sexualized most of us while we were growing up, and it doesn't seem to have done us much harm. Sexualizing children in that sense is not only not irredeemably bad, it isn't bad at all. In another sense, sexualizing children is grooming, which is the attempt to gain a child's assent and secrecy regarding inappropriate sexual conduct with them. That is indeed irredeemably bad, but it isn't what drag queen story hours do. So the law's justification is a simple fallacy, easily recognized by anyone interested in clear thinking. Please note a couple of contrasts. My performance here and now is highly sexualized. I'm wearing pants, my hair is short, and I have a beard. No one is checking the gallery to see to it, though no children are present to be corrupted by this sexualized performance. When I was a child, my parents took me to the Texas Renaissance Festival, in which I witnessed and participated in highly heterosexualized belly dancing performances, including placing coins on torsos and dollars in bras. No one objected, and no one objects. The only difference is that I was sexualized in a politically popular way according to a popular agenda of social control, while story hours are no more sexual but don't support any popular agenda of social control. Let local governments manage their facilities as they see fit, and let parents take their children to the wholesome entertainment of their choice.
Thanks for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
Good afternoon, distinguished committee members and Chairman Brian Hughes. My name is Maxine LaQueen. I am a proud trans woman and full-time drag entertainer. I am representing myself and testifying in opposition of Senate Bill 18. We find ourselves here once again, 2 years later, testifying against very similar bills targeting drag that were ruled unconstitutional in 2023 by a federal judge. And so I would like to pose a question to the committee here today. How many of y'all have actually attended a drag queen story time at a public library? Anyone? Anyone here? Just checking. It has become pretty evident that this committee takes a particularly hostile stance toward an art form that many of you have not personally experienced. Drag is a form of creative expression and a constitutionally protected exercise of free speech under the First Amendment. Drag Story Hour serves as an engaging and educational tool that encourages children to develop a love for reading. As reflected in my attire today, drag performers bring characters and stories to life in a way that fosters imagination and literacy. If the true concern here is the well-being of Texas children, I can say with absolute certainty that drag queens reading fairy tales are not a legitimate threat to them. However, the real threats, such as gun violence in schools and the banning of educational books, demand our urgent attention. Thank you for your time today, and I urge you to vote against this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself, and go ahead.
Good afternoon, esteemed committee. My name is Yoni Vasallo, and I'm known in my community as the drag queen with a master's degree, Solange Vergara. So during my last year of graduate school, I worked on a research project exploring how public libraries can serve as covenants or mediators for the community. We found that libraries are crucial as places where people can gather, discuss, and plan, whether it's for town halls or even emergency response planning. From the research we have gathered, from hundreds of survey responses and the 40 interviews from librarians, library staff, and program directors, the consensus was clear. Libraries are essential community hubs and vital centers of information. While I understand the intention behind SB 18, I believe removing funding from public libraries is something that is truly harmful to our youth. Our children, particularly those in underserved communities, rely on libraries for resources and support. It is wrong to strip funding away from something like that over Drag Queen Storytime, a program that promotes literacy. Now, as someone who has hosted 4 Drag Queen Storytimes, I assure you these events are appropriate and educational. For example, one of the books that I read is entitled Miss Nelson is Missing, a story that teaches kids to be kind to their teachers. The activity that followed included students creating thank you cards and showing nothing but positivity in the drawing and the messages. The children saw my persona, Solange, as this comedic, whimsical, hilarious character, and they didn't really think much of it. And as noted from the drawings and the cards they made for me, they illustrated my 60s beehive wig to be twice the size of my torso, and they said, "Thank you, Señorita Solange Vergara." With all that in mind, y'all, I urge you to vote against SB 18. Libraries should not lose funding over something as wholesome and educational as Drag Queen Storytime. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Quincy Craig. I use they, them pronouns, and I am opposed to SB 18. I'm here in my capacity as a queer person and as an active patron at my local library. I am strongly opposed to SB 18 because I believe it is harmful, unnecessary, and a potential tool of harassment for our public libraries. The bill says specifically a man dressed as a woman or a woman dressed as a man should be grounds for loss of funding for these places, and I believe that this is awful given that, I apologize, given what one considers dressing as a woman is entirely subjective and does not apply to every drag artist out there who do not necessarily emulate men or women. Thus, this legislation could be used to harass an unambiguous public good that provides many services and resources for the community that is served, as he just told us. Threatening the funding of libraries is a severe threat to the communities they serve at large, and all this over people simply dressed in unconventional clothing, or indeed clothing that's the one reporting this potentially simply is not a fan of. All of this while reading a storybook to children. For the good of our communities and for the freedom of expression for those entertaining children, I strongly oppose this bill and ask that all in the committee do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome, introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good evening, House and members. My name is Marsha Romero, and I'm here to testify against Senate Bill 18. I'm a high school sophomore student, an advocate, and a transgender male and 16 years old, and a proud Texan who believes in freedom of expression, equal rights, and the power of public spaces like libraries to bring communities together. But let's be transparent. This bill isn't protecting children. It's about silencing and erasing LGBTQ people from public eye. Let's be honest, Senate Bill 18 isn't banning story hours. It's banning story hours where a person disregards outdated gender norms. A cisgender woman in a princess dress reading to kids, fine. But a drag queen in a glamorous gown? Suddenly, the entire library loses its funding. For what? This isn't about literacy, safety, or education. It is targeted, discriminatory censorship. And let's talk about the real issue here. This bill is unconstitutional. The First Amendment protects artistic expression, and drag is art. Drag is a performance, drag is storytelling. The government does not get to decide what kind of speech is acceptable based on gender presentation. If Texas starts punishing libraries for hosting an inclusive, expressive event, where does it end? Stop trying to hide your bigotry over a bill in guise of erasing funding when this chair knows what the true intentions and harm today's legislation will endorse. Fail this bill. Beyond its blatant discrimination, Senate Bill 18 actively harms communities. Libraries are more than just bookshelves. They are safe spaces, technology hubs, and educational centers, especially for low-income families and marginalized communities. Defunding them over a single event strips Texans of resources they depend on. And for what? To make a political statement against LGBTQ+ people? And let's be clear, there's zero evidence that drag stories harm children. What does harm to children? Censorship, isolation, exclusion. Bills like this send a clear message to LGBTQ+ youth. You don't belong and you shouldn't be seen. That is cruel and that is unacceptable, and that's not what Texas should believe in. If this committee allows the government to dictate what kinds of performances are acceptable based on gender presentation, it will set a dangerous precedent. First, it's drag. Next, it's LGBTQ+ books. And after that, it's LGBTQ+ people. Senate Bill 18 is not about protecting children. It is about controlling narratives, erasing identities, and punishing inclusion. I urge you to reject this bill. Texas has real problems: education, healthcare, economic opportunity. But this is just a manufactured culture war that hurts real people. Let's do better.
Thanks for your testimony. Senators, any questions for any of our witnesses on this panel? Very well, you're excused. Thank you for being here. We are about to call the remaining witnesses who have registered to testify on Senate Bill 18, so I'll ask now if anyone, I'm about to call a few more, but if you wish to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 18, please let us know so that we can get you set. The chair calls Megan Fairbanks. We had called Megan earlier and want to make sure that the opportunity is there to testify. Looking for Megan Fairbanks. The chair calls Hayden Cohen. Hayden Cohen. The chair calls Vanessa Savage. Vanessa Savage. So we're looking for Megan Fairbanks, Hayden Cohen, Vanessa Savage. Welcome. Have a seat anywhere you're comfortable. That's fine. And the chair calls Celia Wood. We had previously called Celia Wood. Want to see if Celia is around and wishing to testify. And there's Celia Wood right there. We were just talking about you. Come on down. Have a seat. If you wish to testify on Senate Bill 18, is there anyone else present wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 18? Okay. Do we come on down and have a seat? And before we start your testimony, let me ask your name.
Marto?
Sophia Marto. Great. So
Marto.
thank you. Before you leave, we're going to get just a little registration from you because we want to have a record of your testimony, okay?
I just gave it. Thank you.
Very good. In that case, let's begin with this panel, and we'll start over here and introduce yourself and give us your testimony. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name's Hayden Cohen. I'm from Houston, Texas.
And Hayden, get a little closer to the microphone so we can hear you. Go ahead.
Never testified on the Senate floor.
Okay. Hey, you're welcome here. You take your time.
Thank you. As I said, my name's Hayden Cohen. I'm a student from Houston, Texas, and I'm here to urge you guys to oppose SB 18. It's a horrible bill, written horribly. First off, we gotta trust librarians, y'all. They're like the kindest, nicest people. They have master's degrees. They know what's appropriate for kids and what isn't. That is their literal job. I don't think that you guys know better than librarians on what's appropriate for kids to read and programming that's appropriate for them. Second, drag queens can cater their performance and events for kids. I'm 20. I watched drag queens all throughout high school, loved them, loved their performances. They weren't risque, they were fully clothed in safe spaces for queer kids because it was an art form and an expression. It expressed our history as queer people, and we enjoyed it. It didn't need to be explicit or risque. They knew they were performing in front of kids, and they tailored their performance to that. This wasn't a club, it wasn't a bar, there's a difference here. And I wouldn't want to take that performance and that art form away from kids right now. And then the second part I had was, part of the bill says that the issue is with a person being dressed in the opposite gender. Let me ask, who's gonna decide that? Is a cop gonna walk in and decide that? Is the librarian supposed to decide who's dressed in the opposite gender? I mean, I have an F on my birth certificate, but I'm wearing pants from the men's section. I'm not wearing a skirt or a dress. Am I considered being dressed in the opposite gender? Like, it makes no sense. It's a violation of our rights. Like, there's a reason that the bill, the past drag ban bill that was similar, got rejected in the courts. It's unconstitutional. Please don't pass it.
Thanks for your testimony. I'm about to call Cecilia Wood, and I'm going to have to step out to present another bill, another committee, but Senator Perry will take over, and everybody's on the record. Everybody's voice matters here. So, Cecilia Wood, introduce yourself, give us your testimony.
My name is Cecilia Wood. I am a board-certified family law attorney, but for this bill, it's more important that I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. And I believe that the libraries, the public libraries, should be a place that everyone feels comfortable to come. As a child, you probably can't do this now, but when I was 12, I remember being able to ride my bike to the library. My parents were not concerned as to what I would see there. When I was a poor single mother, I mean, that was an afternoon of not only entertainment, but air-conditioned entertainment, which is a big deal in Austin. When my grandchildren come for cousins' weekends or they would come for VBS week, going to the library was something they looked forward to. And their parents trusted me to make sure I was exposing them to things that they wouldn't find, that really wouldn't raise questions that children shouldn't be raising. It's also a great source for homeschool parents who don't have a public library in their home. And so I feel like that we don't want people to not be able to come and enjoy story hour with their children. We also don't want people to be afraid. I mean, in Austin, I don't take my grandchildren to the library anymore. If I'm in their neck of the woods, maybe I can do that, because I don't want to have to answer questions that they're too little to understand. And so, I also don't talk to them about, drugs and things that they're just too young to understand or vote on issues, or do we need to have more roads or whatever. So I would ask that you would pass this bill, and I thank Chairman Hughes for bringing it. Thank you.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Sophia. I'm a Texan, born and raised. My family has been here for over 100 years. I was educated here in Austin, and I'm really disappointed that this committee is wasting our tax dollars and a lot of time on this ridiculous bill. I would like this committee to be working instead to improve literacy rates and the quality of the education we are offering our children. Texas is almost dead last, 49 out of 50, among American states for the percentage of the adult population with a high school education. 60% of adults over 25 in Texas don't have a high school diploma or equivalent. This is deeply embarrassing. This bill seeks to target Texans who volunteer their time to dress up in sparkly outfits and read children's books to increase children's interest and engagement with reading. You are the Committee for Education. Why are you seeking to roll back a community's ability to educate their children? This is a government overreach and a threat to the proud American value of free speech, plain and simple. The state is still in litigation over First Amendment concerns for SB 12 passed in 2023 targeting drag performers. U.S. District Judge David Hittner said that bill permissibly infringes on the First Amendment and chills free speech. Why is this even a legislative priority in a state where we just had our first child die of a measles outbreak, where schools are shutting down over flu outbreaks, where children's access to food aid programs and educational programs are being threatened by the federal funding freeze? Please vote against this proposed bill and use your time to increase literacy in Texas. I would also like to say that if you don't want your kids to watch something, just give them the TV.
Chair recognizes Senator Hinojosa is present. Leon?
Thank you so much. My name is Vanessa Sivich, and I'm the president of Protecting Texas Children. I'm also a pediatric nurse with 10 years of experience in caring for and advocating for the health, safety, and well-being of children. You might recognize me as the nurse whistleblower who came forward last year from Texas Children's Hospital to reveal the misuse of Medicaid funds and illegal billing for irreversible trans procedures for minors. I am here today testifying in favor of Senate Bill 18 because no library should be used to promote gender ideology and inappropriate content to minors. Across Texas, public libraries have hosted events where adult men dressed as women read to young children, not as educators, but as entertainers. These events are not about literacy. They are about pushing a political agenda onto impressionable children in taxpayer-funded spaces. This bill ensures that libraries that choose to host such events lose access to state and other public funding. If a library wants to promote gender ideology over educational integrity, they should not do so at the taxpayer's expense. Public libraries should focus on education, not activism. I urge you to vote yes on this bill to ensure that taxpayer dollars are used to support learning, not political agendas targeting children. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we got your first name is Sophia, but what is your last name? What's your total name?
Murto.
Okay, thank you for the record. Is there anyone with questions for this panel? Chair sees none. Thank you guys for being here. Chair calls Megan Fairbanks and Don Garner. Megan Fairbanks and Don Garner. Those are the final two I show registered for public testimony on Senate Bill 18. Is there anybody wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 18 that has not called their name or registered? Please do so now. So staying with the pattern from my left to y'all's right. State your name and who you're with and position on the bill.
Thank you very much. You can call me Ollie. I'm here just representing myself to oppose Senate Bill 18. So when I was 13 in the church, we went to a university for a week of Bible study and other activities, all that fun stuff. While there, my youth pastor asked me if I would help him scrub his back in the shower. He made fun of me for being nervous about starting sports in school and being in a locker room with other naked individuals. He encouraged another member of the group to rip off his towel after returning to the dorm we were staying in, specifically to violate my comfort. I'm one of the lucky ones who didn't end up being outright assaulted, as happens time and time again across the nation in all denominations. So where's the bill to protect kids from church staff? So what I'm here to ask for is authenticity. To give you a concrete example, I'm here because I am readily furious at injustice. And designing a bill to take punitive measures against a public center of joy and learning based on a certain demographic's appearance is a great injustice. Codifying bigotry is injustice. Taking the stance that it's an earnest attempt to protect children is an intentional misdirect to disguise the injustice of targeting queer culture. Insisting on vilifying drag as grooming is blatant projection on the part of predators who need a scapegoat. I am furious that we have to come together to defend our people from baseless accusations and unfounded hypotheticals. I'm furious that we have to act like there's any level of nuance to prejudice. I am authentically furious at the injustice laid before us. If you want to restrict queer culture because you're hateful, just say you're hateful. Write it in your bills and let your authentic self shine through. Far better than that, I ask that you don't pass this bill in the first place for the sake of genuine justice.
Sorry, I didn't get your name, total, first and last.
Oliver Hennigan.
Oliver Hennigan, and he's not registered, or is he? Oh, he's paper registered. All right, thank you. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I appreciate the opportunity, as always, to be with you today. My name is Don Garner. I'm the Executive Director for Texas Faith and Freedom Coalition, whose mission is to give people of faith a voice in government. And towards that end, I have the privilege of often testifying in support of bills like Senate Bill 18. A privilege. We're the world's largest get out the vote organization, reaching hundreds of thousands of Texans in every election cycle. As a matter of fact, in last fall's election cycle, our canvassers hit over 1 million doors. Our members are deeply alarmed by the inappropriate displays in front of children that have been documented in recent days. I do find it unfortunate that so many communities feel attacked by such a specific piece of legislation. Whatever your views may be on LGBTQ and activities such as drag shows. I would have to respectfully disagree with some that have testified before me. This bill truly does aim to protect children. It's to protect children from exposure to demonstrations that are clearly inappropriate at their stage of development. It's about protecting children. These kinds of things, I had a discussion with an attorney recently, just earlier today. This doesn't prevent these kinds of shows from taking place or people participating in them. It just means that the taxpayer dollars are not going to go for those things happening in public spaces. So it's not about attacking certain people, communities, lifestyles. It's about protecting our children. I urge you to support the passage of Senate Bill 18.
Thank you for that. Members, any questions for this panel? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 18? Hearing none, public testimony is closed. Senate Bill 18 will be left pending for a future vote. Chair calls up Senate Bill 19 and asks Senator Arthur Middleton to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Senate Bill 19, the ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying. We have passed this bill 3 times in this chamber, and this would be the 4th time. We're still waiting on the House. Senator Birdwell has that persistence with a lot of his legislation as well. We're not going to give up over here because this is protecting taxpayers. We're never going to stop the fight to protect our Texas taxpayers.